Hi everyone, welcome back to the Planet video series. It's time for the first draft. So you've been building up to writing a full-fledged story. You've had the source list, you've been doing a lot of reporting, you have a news brief, which is really a story, but it's not the fully expanded sort of magazine style story that we're going to be looking for. Likewise for the video and for the photo essay, you guys have been building up, but you haven't really tried to do the full meal. So this is your first shot at that. So I've created 3 separate videos, one for writers, one for photographers, and one for videographers. But this introduction is going to be the same for everybody. So I want to go over just a few of the essentials and then some common weaknesses that I see so that you can try to work to address those. So the essentials. For writers, your story is going to be about 900 words long. You should have at least 3 human sources and 3 document sources in your story. It should have a setting, it should have a clear focus, and it should be perfect in terms of the mechanics, grammar, spelling, AP style, things like that. Photographers, you should have 6 to 8 strong photos that all connect together as a story, and you should have a text that goes along with it that's 200 to 500 words long. You should have at least 1 human source in that photo essay. Videographers, you're going to be creating a video plan, which includes a script of the story and a spreadsheet that breaks down scene by scene how that script is going to be told in visuals. Okay, so the first draft is the most important part of the first draft is your sources. What you've really been doing up to this point is reporting, trying to gather your sources together. And having good sources is going to be the cornerstone of having a good first draft. There's a little bit less emphasis in the first draft on writing technique. What we're really looking for is how's your reporting going, and is your story coming together into a complete story? So sources, sources, sources. For photographers, obviously, you're also going to want to have strong images. And for videographers, you should be starting to get a sense of what's going to make for strong images. Okay, other things, writing technique. Yeah, you like the train. I think we're going to be interrupted here in a minute, but bear with me. Okay, writing technique is going to be important, and structure is going to be important. Those are some things that are really going to help your first draft be a strong draft. So what are some common weaknesses that I've seen in first drafts? I'll break it down into 2 different categories: reporting weaknesses and writing weaknesses. So in terms of reporting weaknesses, one of the fundamental weaknesses that I'll see is a lack of adequate facts. So there's going to be some kind of gaps that's going to leave a reader feeling like they're missing some kind of critical information for understanding the story. So you really want to have your basic facts lined up. Those facts are going to depend on what your story is, but you don't want to have big gaps. Okay, so facts. Another thing that I'll see is a lack of crucial voices in the story. So stakeholders that are missing in the sources, and inevitably that's going to happen a little bit with first drafts because you're still doing your reporting, so you might still be waiting to arrange an interview, but I want to see evidence that you're trying to fill all of the different voices that you really need to have a complete story. And then another thing that I see missing is a setting. Now, you might not be able to go visit the places that you're reporting on given the lockdown, but you should still have a specific place where action is happening. Okay, so those are some of the main reporting weaknesses that I have. In terms of writing weaknesses, there's 4 that I want to talk about. One is jargon. So one of your major jobs as a reporter is to translate from technical information into language that people can understand and that they find interesting. And often what I see is that jargon, technical language that's used by scientists or economists or politicians, all kinds of fields have jargon. specific words that they use that normal people wouldn't use in normal conversation. You're trying to translate into normal conversation. And you should think about it like this. You should think about writing for, let's say, a high schooler or a parent or someone like that who has basic scientific understanding of things, but really does not understand the complexities of the fields that you're writing about. They should be able to understand it without needing long definitions or without having to go look up what a word means. So jargon, you really want to watch for that. Another thing that I see is fluff. And what I mean by that is writing that seems to go on longer than it needs to. It's often filled with adverbs and adjectives and other kinds of things that really, sometimes those things are helpful, but a little bit can go a long way. And my sense often is that when I see that, it's because a reporter is essentially trying to get to 900 words when they don't have 900 words worth of facts for their story. And so that comes back to good reporting and lots of reporting. Fluff. Another related thing is opinion. This can be really a challenge for people, I think, particularly because in academic writing, you're often told to have an opinion and, state your case. For our journalism, we're really working to not do that. We're really working to sort of stick to the facts and tell people the facts and sort of the true story as we've seen it. But I think it's happening for two reasons. One is because people just reflexively want to include their opinion. They don't even realize when they're doing it. And the other thing is that it's a lack of reporting in the same way that fluff is. I think people often, if they don't have the facts, they try to resort to opinion instead. And that comes in the form of sort of sweeping statements about the nature of something that either is not based on quotes from sources or isn't based on hard facts. Opinion is fine if it's coming from your sources. That's one of the role that sources play, is that they offer their opinion about what's happening, but it shouldn't be coming from the reporter. Okay. And then the last thing that I see is lack of organization. Sometimes I'll read first drafts and it feels like somebody sort of dumped their notebook onto the page and didn't really think ahead about how to arrange their story in a clear way. And that lack of organization, frankly, I think it often comes from people trying to do their story at the last minute. You should really give yourself 3 or 4 days to write this. Writing is a long process. It involves multiple steps. You're going to have to go back over through your story a number of times. You're also going to want to map it out in advance. So I think lack of organization often is because people don't give themselves enough time. Now, there's going to be a couple of other videos that you're going to be able to view in the week leading up to the final draft, first draft. Don't want to get you scared. Okay, first draft that will spell out how to think about structure and organization, and also writing techniques to improve the writing quality in your story. So there is more guidance and help coming from me, and of course there's going to be a lot of help coming from your editors.
Okay, writers, let's talk about your first draft. If you're a photographer or a videographer, you're in the wrong video. You should be looking at the one that's made for you. Writers, this is the Canvas page for the first draft for your story. Please take a look at it. I want to point out a couple of things in this talk. One is to walk you through the grading rubric and what's going to be expected in this assignment, and also to show you what the template looks like for this story. I'm not going to get into the details of how to structure or how to write your story in this video. That's going to be for other videos. There's also going to be another video showing you how to do footnotes. For this draft and for future drafts, you're going to want to be doing footnotes so that your editors can use them for fact checking. Stay tuned for that. But right now, first let's take a look at the grading rubric. It's right here. This is something that you're going to want to take a look at it will cover the expectations for each of your 3 drafts. I'm going to pop that open right here. Okay, the grading rubric. Over here, first draft, second draft, third draft. It explains the relative importance of each of these categories. And then for each one, here's the detail about what is expected. So human sources. For your first draft, 3 human sources. For your second draft, 5 human sources. For your third draft, 3 to 5 sources. That means that many sources actually in your story, not just ones that are in your story list or in your source list. That's worth 35% of your grade. So the first draft is really focused on the sourcing. That's really going to be the cornerstone of your first draft. We want to make sure that you have good sources for information. So human sources, 35%. Written sources down here, 20%. For the first draft, 3 written sources used in your first draft. For the second draft, 4. And for the third draft, 5. Length, approximately 900 words for your first draft, 1,300 words for your second, 700 to 1,400 words for your third, depending on what the editors tell you to do. Here, that's 10% of the first draft. Okay, 5% is the depth of the science or the policy that you're going into. You might not have all of the details yet for your story. That's why it's a relatively small part of your grade, but still it's part of the grade. The nut graph is going to be an important part. Stay tuned about what a nut graph is. A setting, it's important that you have some kind of setting. Obviously, you probably haven't been able to visit it, but nevertheless, it's important. That's worth 5%. And then we're going to go down further, and following the planet format is worth 10%, and then having a self-analysis is worth 5%. So please spend a little bit of time reading this and becoming familiar with it. All right, the template for your first draft. You should be familiar with most of this. It looks an awful lot like a news brief, but I want to point out a couple of differences. Let's just scroll down. The source list and everything is the same. There are a few things. Okay, here's the body of the story. This is the lead. You need to be sure to have the lead in italics. The reason why is that it helps us see what you think the lead is and where you think it ends. All right, and then here in bold is the nut graph. Again, stay tuned. You'll learn more about that, what that is. We want that in bold so that we know that you have one and that we know where you think it is. And then the rest of the story, double-spaced standard text. Other than that, it's just like the news brief in terms of the format.